Interview between George L. Egbert, Egbert, St. James, Michigan, 49782, phone 616-448-2363, and Helen Earley of the Oldsmobile History Center at Mr. Egbert's home on Beaver Island, Friday, August 24th, 1990. Well, we're in business, George. Why don't you begin by telling me what you want to about your career at Oldsmobile, when you hired in? When was that?
You have introduced me already?
I put an introduction on.
Shall
Who
I?
you are, your address, your phone number, unless you want to do that.
Oh, no, I just,
Yeah, you do
I
that,
mean,
so we know who you
you
are.
don't want to load up on a lot of the non-essentials. Well, am I in the works? I'm in the works, okay. Well, Helen.
Hi, George.
This is August the 24th, 1990, and it
We're
is...
here at Beaver Island.
You're here at Beaver Island, and my big room at Sand Bay subdivision. And Helen, when I came here in 1960, I bought this lot, 100 feet at, let me see, at 12 cents a foot. Today, the running price is $700 a foot. And on the west side, the realtors are saying that it will soon get to be $900 because the big elegant buildings are being erected over there, and lots of money being invested, and it's beautiful over there. But we have here a marvelous sloping sandy beach, said to be one of the finest bathing beaches on the island. Well, anyway, let's get to the subject. And I came to Oldsmobile at the start of the war.
When was that, George?
That would be probably in 1943, and I signed in plant protection. Others were signing in as fast as as fast as they could, I guess, because we were in war already. Pearl Harbor had occurred, and there were empty chairs, there were empty desks all over Lansing, and we had a manpower shortage, you might say, and people from all over were coming to Oldsmobile, as far as Ionia, my goodness, as far as Grand Rapids, and making round trips, believe it or not, and I'm sure you remember this, all the way from Mount Pleasant and Shepherd and Edmore and big places like that. They would come and make a round trip to Oldsmobile to be in defense employment and go back home in the evening. But I signed in at, I was like a lot of guys. We had going into plant protection, probably happened in General Motors all over the country, but men would sign in plant protection. Some, of course, would sign in hoping that they wouldn't be called on the draft. But let's take two fellas as an example. Freddie Reck and...
Freddie Reck?
Reck, R-E-C-K.
Reck, okay.
And Carl, there I go, I forget names. Carl Heiler. The two signed in plant protection together, and they remained all throughout the war, of course. But the plant protection office was in the basement.
What building?
Building where it's either 28 or 26, I've forgotten. Where was the building at Elm Street Gate? Was that 26?
28.
28? Then it was 26, and that was a squad room down there. They would sign in down there, and Bob Cook was the chief of plant protection at that time. But he would, yeah.
Later became general manager?
No.
Oh, a different
No,
Bob
it was
Cook,
different.
okay.
The cook that you refer to, I know him quite well. Did he become general manager?
Yes.
He did, eh?
Yes.
All righty. So,
Who was the general manager? Do you remember when you hired in?
S.E. Skinner, yeah,
Okay.
you bet.
Okay.
I'm trying to, no, there was another man, but the other man was not, his tenure was very brief before, when I got there. Oh dear, I forgot where I was, but
Signed in.
they signed in. Well, the chief would,
What did you
I'll give you that right away.
Okay.
He would sign, the chief cook would say, now man, you realize this country's at war. You realize that we are working intensely in defense production. We may have sabotage here, and in such case, you might be at a gatehouse or another such point where you would be attacked. In that case, then you must draw your gun. Otherwise, you are forbidden ever to take it out of the holster. And when you draw that gun and you are provoked, shoot and be accurate. Well, that was the way it was. We had no sabotage at Oldsmobile, to my knowledge, except in one instance, and I was on duty at that place. But
what was that? Tell us about it, and where did it happen?
all right, it happened at the Logan Street Bridge, underneath the Logan Street Bridge, and I was on duty at the gatehouse where one of the night routes we had to patrol originated. But anyway, what happened there, the railway had spotted a big boxcar under the bridge and set the air brakes, and I heard this thing coming. The air brakes the air had bled out, and had released the brakes, and down the hill comes this big boxcar and square into the gate, and it then, of course, the gate held, and it dented the gate way in, of course, and we called the sergeant, and they came and they found out what it was, and there was no sabotage. But that was the idea when they came to check, because something like that had never happened before. Okay. Where do we go from here? You want to know about plant protection, what they do? Okay.
Yes, what did you do on your role?
Well, I did what all the other fellows do, the same thing. We operated on 3 shifts. Each shift was for a duration of 7 weeks. The day shift, the evening shift, the midnight shift, and as ordinary patrolmen. And incidentally, we had as many as 200 men, all carrying a gun, because we were soon to come under the auxiliary military police and under the supervision of a regular army officer. But anyway, we'd be assigned to a gatehouse, 2 of us would, and we would take turns, let's say on the midnight shift. Then we would take turns, one of us would walk the beat and come back through the regular out of the buildings and spell off the man at the gate, and he'd take the beat and he'd walk.
Now, did you punch a time clock on
Punch
that
a
gate?
time clock at every strategic part in the buildings to which we went. And, well, sometimes we'd meet the general manager out 1, 2 o'clock at night, just walking around and looking things over. Skinner. And that happened.
Would he speak?
No, he was just looking things over, and he wanted to make his presence known, see, on the midnight shift.
Now, your beat then primarily was at the main plant?
No, that's a good one. During each 7-week shift, we would be driven over in the station wagon to the forge plant, or to that big new plant. I think it became...
Jet Sapphire? Plant 3,
Hey,
Jet
hey.
Sapphire.
That's right. That's right.
Mhm.
And we'd patrol the beats over there, and the Forge Plate, of course, we'd patrol the beats. And we'd, as you say, we would meet a lot of hourly people, a lot of hourly supervision.
Do you remember any of the people on the supervision? Or people that you worked with or saw or got to know better? Any
Yeah.
names?
Very famous names. Oh, dear.
Mhm. Would you see Mr. Skinner over in the Plant 2 or the Jet Sapphire?
Not over there.
But just at the main plant?
Usually in Building 26, I think.
I
Yeah.
see.
Or down around First Aid Station, Building 52.
Now you said there were 200 men.
Mhm.
Would they be 200 on each shift?
They would not, because
This was a total of
yeah, they
three
would.
shifts,
That's
total
that's
200.
that's right, Helen. And
Okay.
they would be divided by over the 3 shifts. Yeah.
Okay. George, did you have any special training? Were the Michigan State Police involved in training men, or where did you get your training to be a plant protection officer?
Well, we got it right on location.
On the job.
We would have seminars. We would have seminars in first aid and in firefighting. We'd have to climb a ladder with an extinguisher. We would have practice sessions in using extinguishers, and we'd get the speaker would give us the whole thing on what we would have to do in any emergency.
I see.
That
Did you
kind.
have any training in handling your gun?
Oh, sure, we had that, and we would go out to the Michigan State Police regularly, not frequently, but at least once a shift, I think, and have our target practice out there, and we would aim for marksmanship, expert, and sharpshooter. And I guess that's all of that.
Well, do you ever remember an occasion when you thought you might have to use your gun?
I never did, Helen, and I don't think that there was anyone that had an experience like that, to my knowledge, except at the Elm Street gate one night when the former lieutenant on the Lansing City Police was working with very loyal.
Do you remember his name?
Which one?
The lieutenant on the Lansing.
Seems to me his name was Moore, and the Oldsmobile man's name was Cogswell.
Coxwell.
And they were just between shifts, you know. Either Cogswell or Moore had to take his turn on the beat, one or the other, and the one had to stay at the gatehouse. But while they were chatting, they were talking about guns, I suppose, and Moore would say, well, this, describing the gun he had was a Smith & Wesson 38. He took it out and sort of fondled it a little bit, and his mate, Coxie, said, now look, he says, you know, the chief has told you never to take that gun out unless you're going to use it and to use it effectively. Moore, he says, I'm going to have to report you on this. I don't like to do it, but you did it right in front. Okay. And he did report him. And the guy got a reprimand, and that's all. But things like that happened. He was a very conscientious officer, and I had a great deal of respect for him. But, Helen, we had a marvelous personnel with these 200 men. We had...
remember any names that you worked with?
Sure.
Let's
sure.
name a few, George.
Well, sure enough. I know these people so well. The names are not going to come back easily.
Did you work with Sammy McFarland?
Big Sam?
Mm-hmm.
Ho, did I ever.
What kind of a fellow was he?
He was, I had a great deal of respect for this guy. He was on duty one time when I was in sales department, and I had to go into the plant and get a picture, you know. And we had always been good friends, and he stopped me at the gatehouse, and he says, what are you doing with that camera, George? I said, I'm going to take a picture. He said, have you got permission from the chief to take that camera in the plant? Well, I didn't know. I thought it was, for granted it goes with my job. Well, he said, I'll have to check you out on that and see what the chief says. But he said, I'll let you go this time. But he was a big, tall guy, quite a handsome man, blue-eyed, those sharp blue eyes, you know. And there was Duke Shaw, who was way back in those days of Michigan State University. He was the was the star fullback for Michigan State. He had taken a police administration course at Michigan State University. He came to Oldsmobile well qualified, and he was a big man, you know. And the fellows respected him. He was a big man. All he had to do was stand somewhere where he was visible, you know, in uniform, gun, Sam Brown belt, and this big, handsome. And he was well respected and very able. Well, gee, a football coach. Seems to me his name was Smith. He used to cross the street at the end of the shift at Milo's and play the piano, and all the people would gather around and sing, including some colored people. They loved the guy. He had a tragic death. And there was Pete Peterson.
Was he a plant protection fellow too?
Mm-hmm.
He used to be a banker and he played the piano?
Well, those, you got to differentiate. The banker became a sergeant later on.
Oh, I see.
And this other guy was simply a patrolman like I was.
I see.
And then there was Pete Peterson. Well, Peterson, big guy, you know, red-headed, big, deep voice. He would talk like that. Two of us were on duty one time on Elm Street Gate, midnight shift, you know, quiet, and it'd be between shifts, and we'd have a few minutes we could chat. And I asked him, he had just come from Bougainville, you know, the island in the South Pacific.
Oh.
And the Army was island hopping at that, taking one island at a time, you know, until they got where they could hit that strategic blow. Anyway, Pete was there, and he was, as he told me, he said, I was on duty at a defense post, and I had two of my mates with me, my friends, and he said the Japs staged a suicide attack. And I lost both of my friends, but he said he didn't say we, he said we stopped the attack, and then sometime after that I was permitted to leave and come home again. But he said this girl that I'm going with now, he said she owns a piece of property on Beaver Island. And I think that we'll be going up there, and I think I'm going to marry her. And we'll be going up there and see this piece of ground and see if it's worth anything, which they did. They did. And he did marry, see. And so they came up here and lived for a while. And I've seen her, this summer I've seen her, she was only a little girl then. Her mother died, but she had grown up and was a waitress here. I am loading up with a lot of stuff. What else you got?
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Well, you mentioned the fact that there was a great interest in fishing, because there were the three of us, and there was Dale Bovee and Bob Hargett and I, and we...
Now, Dale Bovee, was he recreation director then? And now Bob Hargett, he was, where did he work?
Well, Bob drove the station wagon, the dispatch car. Remember, he'd go to the porch, deliver things. That's what he was doing.
Okay.
And let's see, Bob Hargett and myself, the three of us, and we planned this outdoor club.
Was that what developed into the Oldsmobile Outdoor Club?
It did indeed.
Tell me about it. That's
Okay.
interesting, George.
Well, anyway, it was developed into the outdoor club, and
what did you fellows do? You mean you got together to discuss that To promote, what were you going to promote by a club?
Well, we're going to promote fishing for one thing,
Okay.
and outdoor sports of any kind. And they would have, we would have contests for the best fish and the biggest fish.
What year was that the club was formed?
Let's see, from after I left plant protection and got into general sales,
What year was that, George? Well, it
Well,
was
wait,
after
wait.
the war, wasn't it?
It was after the war.
Would that be 45, 46 maybe?
Let's say that.
Okay,
46.
46. Where
Uh,
was the part of the sales were you in then?
I was in general sales doing public relations.
Okay,
Sure.
who was the PR director, you remember?
PR director was Les Carlson.
Les Carlson.
Advertising,
Okay,
and succeeding him was not Jack White.
no.
So Jack White went in next to the general manager Wolfram, and Jack was the PR man then, public
Yes.
relations. And Carlson later retired, and Cole, no, it wasn't Cole who succeeded.
Well,
If you-
let's pick up your career. We
All
can
right,
fill in.
okay. Anyway.
Well, what did you do in the sales department?
Well, primarily I wrote the Oldsmobile News for a while, then
Now,
it
that
became,
was the internal publication?
that's right, then it became Team Magazine.
Okay, so you were really the editor.
I was the editor, right, and I did the whole thing. I wrote it, went out and got the news, wrote it.
So you would be in the plant a lot. of
A great
time.
deal, a great deal.
Okay,
I mean,
what, did anybody tell you what to put in the magazine, or was that left up to you to decide what stories?
Totally. It was totally my job. Nobody did anything at all, except Fitzpatrick once in a while
That would be Doyle
yeah,
Fitzpatrick.
who would do a page layout, and it would involve a lot of artwork at which he was quite adept at.
Now, he was the head of art and charity.
Art and chart,
Okay.
yeah. And he had, let me see, he had 3 men under him, not counting the photoset department, and young Coxwell, was that his name, Helen?
Yes, there was a Cogswell in there.
Photosat,
Mm-hmm.
that's the guy. All right, let's see, where do we go from here now? Primarily, we developed interest in fishing. We developed interest in fishing. And there were some funny things that happened. For instance, Bill Mahoney is a beautiful...
Now, he was the personnel
he
director?
was the personnel chief,
Okay.
Bill Mahoney. He has this place at Burt Lake, and I don't know whether this incident happened in a boat on Burt Lake or not, but I'll give you the story of what happened. It was kicked around the plant a lot. Everybody got a chuckle out of it. Anyway, he and the general manager and
Now, that would be who then?
Skinner at that time, and then this very respected man in charge of the Ford Fire. That was ahead of Tom Darton,
Okay.
Tom Darton, is
Could
that
have
the
been
name?
Tom Darkin.
Yeah.
We could check that.
He was at Chevy, and he's dead now.
Mhm.
Anyway, this all happened, and they were in the boat, and they just got in the boat and got the lines in the water. And I'm not sure whether it was the Skinner, but I think it was Skinner who caught the first fish. And it was a pretty good fish, And Mahoney, he's up in charge of that. He said, let's see that fish, and they gave it to him. Oh, geez, we got fish in this lake, bigger than that. Throw it away. They spent the rest of the day, and nobody ever got even a bite after that. That got around the plant,
Oh, gee.
and that was kicked around, and then we got a whopping big fish, I'll tell you about. And there was Strahan and Hargett, and I think Bovee was in the picture.
Strand?
Strahan.
Strahan.
I've forgotten this.
Okay.
Charlie Strahan.
Charlie Strahan, okay.
Uh,
And Hargett?
and Hargett, I think it was
And
Dale. Yeah.
Bovee.
I'm not sure about Dale,
Oh.
but he would have to be almost. Anyway, this was a paper mache fish,
Oh, you bought a paper machine?
No, a teacher at Sexton High School. This was a
Created one, huh?
yeah. This was a lesson.
Oh,
Okay,
I see.
a demonstration for some kids over there. Paper mache. Well, this thing was about 6 feet high and beautifully formed in paper mache. And we thought we'd provide a little stunt for the magazine, so we got with the people in Building 52 at the north end, which has a big curtain gate, you know, the steel gate rolls down or rolls up as you please.
What did they do in Building 52?
The Building 52, they turned out the ogive, which was the comb that goes on of aluminum that goes on the 75 millimeter shot shell or shell. That was primarily what they do. They did there, and nobody was allowed there unless you had an amber insert in your badge. Okay.
Okay.
But anyway, we had the fellow that was running the hoist up overhead bring the chain, the big mess of chain, that big hook, you know, and he brought it out to the end of the curtain door and he let that thing down and we hooked it on the fish. And he pulled that paper
Shake?
bluegill.
Oh,
We turned it around. We called it a glue bill. And he lifted that up so we could take a good picture, and these three guys stood in it. And
now that would be Hargett and Strahan and
I think it was Dale.
Dale Booby.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there. I watched the whole thing because that was my job. It was the idea, and I wanted to get it across. And of course, Woolhouse took the picture, and we got a beautiful 8x10 shot of it. Somebody took it into Carlson's office when he was there and showed him the stunt that we'd pulled off. And he looked at it and he said, where did they catch this fish? In Michigan? And he was deadly serious.
It looks so real?
Well, it looks so real, but it was gigantic. There's no fish like that in any Michigan waters. You know, this thing was this wide.
6 feet tall?
Pretty good 6 feet. So that was all. We didn't want that fish anymore. We took it over to the jet plane, and we put it on a shelf back in back of the cafeteria. I suppose it's still there. But of course, in the wintertime, we would stage, the outdoor club would stage these big events on Houghton Lake, and our people with the CB radios would be along the way checking that everybody.
What would you do? Get a caravan and go up?
Well, no, they went up separately. They hired their own. The people, the men, the women, hired their own individually, their own cabins up there, and did their own fishing for prizes.
It was a family affair, wasn't it?
It was very frequently a family affair, kids and everything. Jack White would bring his boys up, and I don't know.
How did you get your members? I mean, did you circulate through the plant that there was a club starting, and vote on officers? Or?
Yeah, that was done too. And of course, it would be in Team magazine, and those who were nominated for president would be generally known, and that's how they would. And then they.
Do you remember who the president was when the group first
Well, Bob
started?
Hargett was the #1 president, of course. He was very active and very good. And then there was
officers.
there was one of the men from the engineering department, product engineering. I wish I could think of his name. I cannot, and I'm so sorry. I can't think of his name.
It's okay. You were an officer at one time.
I was vice president.
Vice president.
And I
Okay.
I did the footwork, Ellen. I did all of that, you see.
I know it.
I didn't want to be president.
Well, then you worked closely with Bob Woolhouse in taking pictures in the plant, or did you take your own?
Well, I did it later, toward the end, when Bob wasn't well. I did do that. Turn it off.
Okay, I'll just turn it off.
Hadn't we better take her?
We're all set.
But you're not recording now, are you?
Sure we are.
I'm talked out.
No, you're not, George. We've only gotten up through you
honey.
just got in public relations.
Put it on pause, so maybe I can.
Okay. Okay, so now after the strike was over, April 1st, 1946, what happened to the internal publication?
Wow. Well, Helen, I think the plant organ, which at that time probably was Oldsmobile News, yeah. I had pictures I had collected from several weeks and months of people who had went out and caught a big fish, had gone out and caught a big fish. And I had this format prepared. It was rather a formal thing, a row of men with their fish, a row of men down below with their fish. And in each place I would have it an inset with a man's name and the size of his fish. And we had these team editorial meetings over in Bill Mahoney's office, and there would be Hal Walton. Jack White brought him in from the State Journal. Hal Walton. There would be Ed was gone then. There would be Fritz Speditz. There would be myself. There would be the advertising manager. There would be Jack White, of course, and Bill Mahoney. And I had this beautiful big spread. Men from every plant, every area, every strategic area in the whole plant with a fish, see, so that we were well covered. And Bill Mahoney gets the spread and looks at it. He said, He said, "You're overdoing it, George. You're overdoing it." And I said, "Why?" He said, "All these fish." Well, I said, "Not fish, Bill." I says, "These are your people. All these men work under you." And I said, that's why I'm doing it. I don't care about the fish. Well, he said, "Out with it." So I lost the whole double spread and had to dig up something else. That was something, but I won't forget that.
No.
But he had no idea that.
Well, how much that would have meant.
And we had been loading up the publication. We're fishing pictures of guys that had won prizes. We'd have the outdoor club have a meeting in the auditorium, and they'd step up to get their prize at the podium. And picture would be taken. Big thing, and we might have been doing something else a little more constructively. That's what Bill was thinking.
Well, George, did the factory support the Oldsmobile Outdoor Club?
Indeed, just 100%, Helen. They never quibbled. They backed us, but I suppose that personnel department and labor relations especially, and recreation, those departments, they were all integrated anyway. I suppose that they were sitting on an uneasy seat all the time, because here we'd sponsor these trips up to Houghton Lake, danger on the ice, the expansion joint there, if that posed a hazard, if somebody would have an accident, or there was a car accident on the way or on the way back, somebody was severely hurt or killed, personnel, that was their administration. I know that. I know, and they were very, but they never did take direct participation in it. They left it up
to the individuals, the employees.
of the outdoor club, the administration of the outdoor club.
I see.
You know,
Were you ever told just what to put in the internal publication, or was that left up to you pretty much?
it was left up to me, I think. I can't think of, well, once in a while there'd be a piece of advertising that we'd have to get in there, and
What kind of advertising would that be?
all the car.
On a new car?
Yeah, the new car, the new engine.
Well, George, for a while we didn't seem to put anything in about the zones. So was there some reason for that?
No, it just didn't get.
They didn't send in any information?
Yeah, every once in a while we would have something like that. Yeah, but that would have to be submitted, and it would be the responsibility of the zone man in the licensing office to see that something would be printed about their own respective area. You know, but I don't think much of that was done. I think this whole thing was my worry, and once in a while I wrote when Bill Mahoney retired. When Bill Mahoney retired, I wrote the regular run-of-the-mill history of his presence at Oldsmobile during all those years, and that went in with the next publication with all my copy. Jack White would read it, then it'd go to the general manager, and if he would okay it, but he didn't like that on Bill Mahoney.
Who was general manager then?
Wolfram.
Okay.
He didn't like that on Bill Mahoney. He said, oh no, take it back and do it over and put a little, the other one is a little bland, a little dry. He said, put a little, you use that phrase, pizzazz, put a little color in it, put a little color in this article about Bill Mahoney, which I did. Did I ever? And I resubmitted that with all the color I put in, and he approved it, and it went in the next magazine. It went into the newspaper, went into the State Journal. I think it was submitted to the State Journal, but it went into Tea magazine anyway, on Bill Mahoney, because he was a colorful man.
Yes, he was.
Do you know that when he'd get up before the executive club, which he conducted whenever we had an executive club meeting, all of the salaried supervisory personnel and such, and he'd start to talk, and somebody way back over there would say, boo, boo, and they'd all pick it up, see? They'd all pick up. Did you ever hear him do that?
No.
They'd all yell, boo. The executive club, 2,000-3,000.
Now, is that the Quarter Century Club? Or?
Well, it could have been the Quarter Century, integrated with the others.
Okay.
They would all boo him and never face him a bit. You know, he loved it. You know, he loved that. They told me that when he was playing ball for the Lansing City team, they'd go to the Jackson State.
On the prison?
Well, you could, yeah, let's say Lansing State Reformatory or prison, I suppose. And they would expect him, because they knew him down there, and he'd get up to bat, and he'd take the bat, and he'd hit it on the plate, and it'd bounce up, and they'd boo that, you know, and they'd boo him, and then he'd turn and he'd take off his hat, and he'd doff his hat to all of the prisoners, you know, there. And that's how they started booing him when at the meetings. Everywhere he'd go, boo, boo, see. But he was a popular man, and he was quite well liked. In fact, in some places he was well loved, almost. Oh dear. You go into the old assembly, or the old main plant now today. You go through Elm Street Gate. You will be issued a pair of safety glasses. I presume they do that. And you'll have to return those, of course. And you go down, straight down Elm Street, and you come to where Building 36 and 38 still are, I presume. And across the street from that is a building that simply completely vanished. A good part of it is in the ground and covered up. And that's where they tested the 20 caliber, then the 37 millimeter guns. 37 millimeter gun, about that big around. What else? 37 millimeter? No, I don't think so. Yeah, the whole. No, I don't think so. That 75 was.
37
was huge, yeah. But anyway.
Were you ever down there?
Oh yes, we had to be on duty there. Check everybody that came in, everybody that went out.
Oh.
By days, and of course on the night shift, if they didn't run any shift at that time, it would be locked up too. But they removed the superstructure and everything else is still underground there. I often think of that. People going down there, you know, and there's an old relic of World War II sitting there in the ground.
It's still down.
Even employees don't know. I presume now it is turned into a parking lot now.
But did they never remove that from underground?
Not at all, no.
Or
So,
would they fill it in, do you think?
They filled it in, sure.
I see.
Oh, it was all cement, you know.
Well, George, you retired what year?
I think it was 1966, Helen.
The year we introduced the Tornado.
Yeah.
Well, George, then you mentioned Hal Walton. What kind of a man was he to work with?
I think it was all. I liked Hal Walton. He did
His
it.
title was, what, was he assistant PR director?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
He'd had some bad experiences in trying to publish a little weekly newspaper of his own, you know, because he couldn't compete with the state journal, and he lost out there, so he joined them. Couldn't. So he joined them, and Jack picked him up there. It was after Warner had left, I think. See, and he had.
So Jack White hired
yeah.
Hal Walton.
I think so.
Okay.
Jack White sponsored it.
Sponsored it.
And, well, anyway, Hal would be, I was much older than Hal, you know. I would go in to deliver a piece of copy to him, and said, George, how does it feel having to work for a kid? I said, what do you mean? Kid? Well, myself. I'm much younger than you are. How does it feel to be working for a kid? It's all right, Hal. But he was very self-conscious about that. See, here I was in my 70s, 60s maybe, and he was still a kid. We got along fine.
Well, George...
I did a lot of the writing for him, you know.
Yeah, well, you wrote for... Did you write some for Jack White, too?
Oh, no, Jack White's stuff
Was it good?
was his own style, and yeah.
How was he to work with?
He was all right, Helen. He was all right. I don't think he liked me. You remember when they opened the bridge?
The Logan Street Bridge?
No.
No,
Straits Bridge.
Oh, yeah,
that?
Mackinac
Yeah.
Bridge.
That was a big event because we had some Oldsmobile cars up there. And
We had a lot of convertibles.
a
up
lot
there,
of
didn't
them.
we?
Oh, did we ever?
A fleet of
Did we ever? And well, Jack sent everybody else from the department, including others, up there for that 2 or 3 day event. and he left me to take care of the department. And I often wondered why he did that. Period. That's all. That's all I know. Probably thought that I was experienced enough to handle.
To manage the department on your own.
Well, I don't know.
Well, now, you worked at Monty Child's, too.
Yeah, yeah, I sure did.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, we got as many as 3 trains at first.
In the tour program.
Yeah, on the tour program with two drivers.
Who were your drivers, do you remember? Bill Lively?
Lively is one, yeah.
No, where did they come from?
They came out of the service. When they came out of the service, they came with Oldsmobile in this department.
Okay.
Might have been they went with exhibit and display.
Okay.
Then came over to us, yeah. But they handled that very nicely. I thought I would sit in the way in the back with the loudspeaker, you know. And,
you were the narrator on
I'd
the
give
tour?
the narrator, yeah,
Okay.
from the beginning to the end.
Now, where would the tour start and what would it go through? What areas, George?
Well, the tour would be organized in the lobby in Building 60, and
it was the administration building.
that's right. And they would be briefed there, and then they'd go over.
Now, when you say briefed, what would that consist of?
Well, what incidental little thing that might come up, they would have to be told and instructed about it. Then we'd go
Well,
into.
I mean, what would that be? Like,
Well, people with.
were they allowed to take cameras in the plant?
No, we
It had a restriction on cameras.
had a restriction on cameras.
Was there an age limit to children?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I mean, you could take a baby holding him on your lap?
I don't think so. I don't think that was permitted. I think there was a restriction there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not clear on that anymore. But we would get in the plant door. We would get in the big bus,
Oh, out in front of Building 60.
and that would take us to Elm Street Gate, and
Okay.
we'd get out there and get in the train there.
And you had 3 trains at first.
We had one at first.
One at first.
Carlson bought another, and finally I think they got the third one.
Well, then where would you go from that area?
We'd go, the first place would be the plant right where Elm Street Gate is, where they pressed out the cone of the bazooka rocket, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then we go down through a little isolated heat treat department. I think that I can't remember for sure. Then into building 37. Then into 36 and 38, and they did the stubby little 75 millimeter cannon for a while that shot through the propeller blades of the aircraft that was carrying it. From there we went into the new heavy press department where the front fenders were pressed out, and then there'd be a whole series of presses that would do they would do the piercing, move over to another press, do the pierce, and other little operations on down until the fender came out perfectly.
Well, George, were we doing building rockets and cars at the same time?
Well, this was after.
Guns?
This was at the end of the war when they were back in automotive production.
Okay.
I got, yeah. But let me tell you, yes, in that new press plant, an adjunct to Building 52, the main press plant, they were machining the 75 millimeter. They were, the 75 millimeter.
Gun?
Not the tank gun, no.
Cannon?
The 75 millimeter tube, let's call it that, yeah. And then from there into the paint department, and the fenders would be painted and dried. And then into final assembly.
What
And
building was that?
final assembly would be building, final assembly proper would be building 35. Building 75 would be where we'd start, and the tires would go on there, and some small essential things, and finally we'd get to where we'd make a semicircle, come back down, and they let down the front end assembly, and then a little farther down would be the main body would come down, and then it'd swing over, and it'd be final inspection, and it'd be final painting, touch up, and all that, and then they'd leave. And that's when at Logan Street Gate they'd get in the plant bus again and come back to building 60.
How long would a tour take? About an hour? Hour and a half?
Oh yeah, easy.
And so then you would be the narrator for one of the narrators? Did
Yes.
you have more than one? Did each train have a narrator?
Yes, there'd be somebody on the other one
Okay,
too.
so a driver and a narrator on each train.
Drivers would be up front, honey.
Okay.
Up front, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the back would be where the guy would sit with the speaker and give the narration. So I did that. And just something just occurred to me that I thought maybe you'd want me to mention.
Sure. You're mentioning
so many,
the tour.
so many things come up. We never had an accident to my knowledge. All the time I was on the planter train.
Good.
Either as a result of the drivers or...
Were people allowed to get off the train?
Yes, they would be in the heavy press department to see some of the one or two of the heavy presses operating, close up, quite close up,
Okay.
I didn't prepare this at all.
Oh, you didn't have to prepare anything, George. It's just what comes to you. Now, did you work with Mr. Wolfram on anything, work closely with him?
Never did at all. Went through Jack White.
Always through Mr. No.
Well, he was responsible, and he had to see what was.
Uh-huh. Well, now, you worked on Mr. Bennett's, too.
Yes, I worked under Bennett's.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
What kind of a man was he to work with?
Well, you were there all that time.
Well, yes, but I mean...
Well, that's all right.
Your
So I can...
relationship was different than mine.
That it was indeed so. That I am talking to somebody who is conditioned to know he was a pretty good guy.
Mm-hmm.
You remember how he'd have a little informal seminar out in the main part of the place where you were, main part of the office. All right, come on, team, let's go. Let's go. You're in good shape now. You're in good shape. The old pep in there. Let's go and let's get the job done. Because he was a football coach, at Ipsy.
Fired you up.
Still, he would fire us up. Well, I remember that about him. But Fitz never did any writing at all.
No.
It was purely administrative. Yeah.
George, do you remember Virginia Bailey? Did you work with her?
Tell me, where did she work?
Oh, maybe you weren't there then. Okay.
Oh, I knew her, yes, indeed.
Virginia Bailey. Okay.
Tell me.
Well, I just wonder what kind of a person she was to work with.
Well, I have, I think very, very, very well. Virginia Bailey.
She later worked for Jack White. I thought she had been in PR in your office before she went down there to...
Oh, I know Virginia Bailey. I've been getting a narration from her every year since I left Oldsmobile, telling her, the format, the old standard format of what their kids did and when they graduated and the honors and all that. See, Virginia Bailey.
Yeah.
She was a dynamo. She was very dynamic. She was on fire all the time doing something. Sometimes she'd get into the ladies' room, remember, and talk about Jack White
Yes.
indiscreetly.
Yes, I remember that.
But that was unkind on her part. I thought I didn't admire her for that. But she was very dynamic gal. She was very dynamic.
Were you there when Bill Quigley was there?
Hmm.
How was he to work with?
He was a nice kid to work with. Helen, they all were.
Yeah. Now, were you there when...
The only one that used to get under my skin was Monty Childs. Oh.
Yes.
Sure, you'll get a nice little piece of copy for that, probably.
Yes. This is an article on the 1959 and 1960 Oldsmobile. But you worked with him. Did you collaborate on any writing together with Jerry O'Neill?
Not to my knowledge, Helen.
Okay.
Jerry was very able. He probably asked me a few questions, and in that way I could help him out, see, but that's all.
Okay.
He was a good writer.
Yes.
But, go ahead.
I was going to say, George, you retired in 1966, you said. Okay. Was there any reason you retired at that time?
Oh, that's a good point. Thank you. For a long time, my wife was losing her ability to walk. Her knees were giving her great pain, like I got now, only she was much worse than I. And you know, we lived on Westmoreland. Do you want this in there?
Sure, I do.
We lived on Westmoreland, and we had that great big square, old-fashioned square house. All that beautiful oak paneling and flooring, beautiful, and 4 or 5 bedrooms. And that gal could not handle that house. And she was, there were times when she couldn't get out of bed in the morning. There were times when I would help her out. She was heavy. I'd help her out, and she'd be standing there, tears running down her face, in extreme pain. I'd get her to the little half bathroom that we had there at the head of the stairs. The bathroom was upstairs. She couldn't get to that anymore. And there why should she have to cook and all that? And I just made up my mind, well, to hell with that. I can retire, and I'll take my retirement and I'll help around the house, which is what I did.
Now, how old were you when you retired then?
Let's see, 66, 73. I don't know.
That's all right.
66, and I was born in 1903.
Okay, well, that's all right. You were 63.
I was pretty old. I've been away from Oldsmobile for 24 years.
Okay. You hired in there, you said, during the war in 1942 or 3.
Yeah, can you check that?
Sure, I can.
Can personnel come up with those dates for you on demand?
Well, not always, George. We have to sort of check telephone books and that type of thing sometimes. Personnel records have been sent down to Brighton someplace, and it's pretty hard to check things.
Why did they do that?
Don't ask me, George. It's different. I'm good.
It's all screwed up, isn't
Yeah,
it?
hey, George, before we shut this off, I have well, it's a standard kind of an agreement form, we call it. You're familiar with that.
Silent, yeah.
You're okay. I didn't think you'd have any objections.
No,
I just
no,
kind of
no,
wanted to bring
no.
that out for you. Why don't we just kind of close this off, unless you can think of some unusual thing. What was your contribution, do you think, when you were at Oldsmobile, mostly?
Writing, building morale by the stuff I wrote and the way I slanted it, and The way I would slant it, I think, and the content, I always decided on what kind of content I would use, would decide on, and that would be that it might build, perhaps, some little bit of morale, or good feeling among the employees, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's, of course, the fishing department, the fishing contest, all those things contributed to that, you know, the fellows.
To the outdoor club
Yeah.
and the recreation department.
Fellows in the Fort Spread and all over, we all got acquainted with each other very well, you know. That was the nicest part of it. But you're through. You're not.
You think you got your story told?
Oh no, I could. I'd have to think this over a little bit. I
No.
don't think I did very well.
You did
so.
fine. Now, George, if you...
You would say that.
No, I'm truthful. If you run onto some photographs, like you mentioned, and if you think of something else, we'll be here another couple days. Give me a call at Phyllis's, and I can run down.
Well, yeah.
But right now, why don't we shut this off, if that's okay with you?
Sure, it's okay with me.
Okay.